All right. Hi, Winslow. How are you?
Hi, Kayla. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. Sure.
Would you like to start out by just sharing a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Winslow Mason. I live in Upper Darby. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I'm actually in my Medicare space. This is probably my third or fourth career, believe it or not. So I started off as a journalist. I became a community organizer after that. Then I started doing work in the organizational development space. And a good friend of mine talked about my skill of building relationships and suggested that I get into Medicare. And I had no reference for sales because I just never thought I could do sales. But he said sales is not sales; it's really relationships. And so that's how I got into. I studied for the license in PA and took, passed the exam and started doing it. And it turned out I'm actually kind of good at it. So, and I enjoy helping people, which is probably the most important thing. So that's really kind of where a little bit about me. I'm a father. My kids are 28 and 27, divorced. I have a partner now. That's a little bit about me.
Okay, great. What do you like to do in your free time?
I just came back from New York. I saw a show. So I probably like the arts and seeing shows. And when I'm not doing that, I'm really heavy into music. So I spend time listening to music a lot. And probably and then I'm working. I'm one of those people who work. So I do consulting on the side. So I do diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting. So I work with organizations to help them meet some of their DEI goals. So my pastime is probably working, believe it or not.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about how you got into this market and things of that nature?
Sure. Yeah.
So, what led you to working with seniors on their specialized insurance needs?
What led me to that?
Yeah.
So as an organizer, I used to do education organizing in Philadelphia. And strangely enough, and it was a shock to me, in Philadelphia, you have a lot of grandparents who are raising children for a whole host of reasons that we don't have to get into. But I wound up doing a lot with seniors that way. And as I kind of got into the Medicare space, there was a bit of familiarity with that. So I didn't have any apprehensions to working with the senior market. I kind of have the patience, I guess, acumen, if I can use that word, to work with seniors. And again, it goes back to my need to want to help people. And that's really kind of what got me into that space. I do a lot with trying to help people navigate spaces and really help them work on things that they're trying to work on. So it was really just that helping space that kind of got me into it.
Okay. What do you think are like the biggest challenges that your clients face regarding their financial situation?
So the biggest challenge is, from what I can see, the biggest challenge for them is obviously navigating things like Medicare. Medicare, once you get into it, it's fairly simple, but if you don't get into it, it's very, very complicated for folks. There's a lot to understand and know. And so I think the biggest challenge for the folks that I come across is really helping them navigate those spaces and trying to figure out what's going to be best for them. The other challenge is that obviously, as a senior market, a lot of folks are coming after them. They want their business. So you have people getting 10 or 15 calls a day from multiple different carriers, offering multiple different things. And a lot of seniors become bombarded, if that's one word I can use, but also vulnerable because everybody's trying to sell you, everybody's trying to get you to do something, and there's some suspicion around that. Obviously, when you get older, and so I think a lot of the seniors that I deal with, or certainly that I come across, are very apprehensive. They're very cautious. They're very skeptical. Everybody's offering a new thing, and so helping them understand that environment first is probably the biggest key. And then helping them navigate through that is probably the other piece.
Yeah. How do you help them navigate through that? That's what I was just going to ask you before you said that you help them navigate through it.
In some ways, it's simple. It's really trying to figure out what are their goals, what are they trying to do. A lot of them, like you said, first financially, they're trying to figure out, how do I get more for less? So really using that frame as a way to kind of get into looking at, if they're looking at a specific plan, I can help them say, all right, here's a plan that might work for you, and that kind of thing. So navigating that space really becomes, I become a teacher in some way. So I'm always educating them on, obviously, the parts of Medicare, what's the difference between a supplement plan and an MAPD plan, and why do they need to know the difference? I think that's another piece of it. All of that starts with the relationship building that needs to happen, because there's a certain level of trust that needs to happen. Everybody's going to tell you one thing or another, but if you can build that relationship and build trust, then that's probably the key. So helping them navigate, to me, is building trust first. And so I'll give you the best example of that. I'm one of those people that, and because I work full time, this is not my primary bread and butter. I'm less aggressive about getting you to sell or getting you to buy that time. So I'm able to give you more time to get to know me and get to relax and get to trust. And that's a unique position to be in. Obviously, some people are out here and that's really their full-time job. And every sale is really going toward a bill or something or another. For me, it's less about that. And I'm able to take the time and let you sit for a minute. So I'll meet with a client. I'm not necessarily pressed about selling you in that moment or getting you to sign something in that moment. Take your time. I'll give you all the information you need. Call me when you're ready. When you want me to come back, I'll come back. So that's kind of an approach that I can take because I work full time. And so I think that's one of the ways that I'm helping them navigate that. So it's not as pressure filled for my clients as for some other folks, I think.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if I was in that position, that would put me at so much more ease.
Right.
Just feeling like somebody's selling something to me and they have the time, and to build that connection is really important. What do you think, without divulging any specific details, can you tell us about a time that you helped a client achieve one of those goals or overcome one of these challenges? And what was a story for you that was wow, I'm really glad I got to help this person?
Yeah, so I think it was last year I met a client who was paying, I can't remember the number, but it had to be $600-700 a month or something. It was, for a senior, it was expensive. So I know it was a lot to be paying for insurance for Medicare, and they must have been in the $600 or $700 range. And they were trying to figure out, how do I reduce my costs, because they could no longer afford it. Some seniors think that that's what they have to pay, so they just go ahead and pay it. And only when they learn that you can get a pretty decent Medicare insurance plan for less than that, that's when they become more open to listening and hearing about what else is out there. So for me, that's a story of, I met a client who was very reluctant about a Medicare Advantage, had heard some good things about it, some not so good things about it, and was very reluctant to move away from her existing plan. I think I can't remember whether she was original Medicare or whatever, but whatever it was, she was paying a lot. And so we went back and forth. So this is an example of a client who wasn't ready to sign anything in that moment. I was able to kind of educate them a bit more. And then came back, left that client. She called me a week or so later. We talked some more. She was a little bit more interested. And again, it became this thing where we just kept talking. And then she finally I was able to kind of run through the Medicare video with her. Obviously there's a compliance video that we share, walking through looking up her medications and all those things that really get into the cost. And at the end of the day, she wound up signing on, and she's very happy about it now. And so she's one of those people that would say, wow, I didn't know I could get a pretty decent insurance plan, and in some cases with a $0 premium. I think she's paying maybe $43 or something for her plan, but she's got some rich benefits with it. So that's an example of a situation where someone was very reluctant about a Medicare Advantage and had to take the time to first get you to understand what Medicare Advantage is, and then open you up to the idea that this is something that could be beneficial for you.
That's a really good example. If you had a crystal ball and you could see the future, what do you think would be the biggest challenge in the senior financial market in the next 3 to 5 years? And we won't hold you to it, but just love to hear your opinion on it.
I think the biggest challenge is likely going to be the increased restrictions around Medicare Advantage. I mean, every year it gets more and more difficult, I think. So I think last year they introduced the idea that you have to record all of your sessions, or because there's a lot of, obviously, there's a lot of fraud, there's a lot of aggressive sales tactics, and the inordinate amount of calls that seniors get. So Medicare, I think, is trying to clamp down on a lot of that stuff. And in the process, it makes it more difficult, I think, for folks like myself, because I have to do a number of things to really get to that sales part. For example, I have to now record every call that I have, or I have to do more compliance things. So I think compliance is going to be probably one of the more bigger challenges, because Medicare, there's a lot of money, as you know, and not just for folks like me, but for the companies like, Aetna and Blue Cross and so on and so forth. Everybody's trying to get into this market. It's becoming much more competitive. It's becoming much more aggressive. And so I think that's going to continue. And in the process, Medicare is going to try to figure out, how do we make this less invasive for seniors? How do we take this competitive market and still make it so that seniors don't feel targeted, they don't feel pressured, they don't get taken advantage of? And I think there's a lot of that going around. I had a number of clients who got calls from someone pretending to be, they were on an Aetna plan that I had sold them. They got calls from someone who told them they were from Aetna and told them that they were going to move them from a different plan. And a lot of seniors, not all of them, but a lot of them are trusting in a certain way, and they wind up getting bumped off their plan. So that's happening more and more. These aggressive sales tactics are happening more and more. And I think that's really going to be the biggest challenge, is really compliance over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with me today and going through some of these questions. Is there anything else that you want to share with me that you would want people to see, like when they come to your website and get to know a little bit about you?
Yeah, so if there's anything I have a real interesting brand, as I like to call it, right? And my brand is, I'm not that aggressive salesperson. I'm not that person that, I'm not leaving here until you sign something on the dotted line. I'm more of that person that says, let's talk about what your healthcare needs are. Let's find out how we can match what you would like with what you can afford, and let's make that happen. And I do a lot of follow-up with my clients. So, I'm the person that sends out mailers every month, or, I'll call and check in. If I have a client who calls with a question or problem, I'm very quick to get back on the phone. Hi, Ms. Johnson, what's going on? How can we help? Winslow, I had a claim that didn't go through. All right, let me call Aetna. Let's get on the phone. Let's see what's going on. So I'm very caring with my clients. And I think, and that's a brand that I like to promote, because a lot of seniors are coming across agents who really see them as means to an end. Just I want the sale and whatever. I don't necessarily need to build up this big client base. So I'm very selective as well about the clients that I want to bring on, because I know that I'm going to give you the time and attention that you need. And so I'm small but involved and accessible. And so that's kind of my brand that I like to go out there with.
Yeah, I love that.
Other than that, I am trying to, right now I primarily put folks in Aetna plans. I'm doing more with Blue Cross coming up this year. I'm going to be doing some more with United maybe. And there's another plan that's coming up called Devoted Healthcare market this year. So I'm trying to just expand my portfolio of plans for folks. And so really being able to give people choices and options and things like that. So that's really what I'm looking forward to this year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to go over some things with me and share a little bit about yourself.